Margaret Collins stood at the window of her office on the top floor of Collins Aerospace headquarters and watched the ships moving between Earth and the moon base. She owned those ships and the company that built them, but tonight she felt empty inside. Her marriage was falling apart and she knew it. Derek had been acting strange for months now. He came home late from his job at the finance ministry and spent hours on his personal computer with the door locked. When she asked about his work, he gave short answers and changed the subject quickly. The man she married 5 years ago used to tell her everything about his day. Margaret was not just any wife worrying about her husband. She was the richest woman on Earth and controlled the biggest defense company in human space. Collins Aerospace built the warships that protected all human colonies across 3 star systems. Her company made the jump drives that let humans travel faster than light and the weapons that kept aliens from attacking human worlds. The thought of aliens made her think about the trade meetings Derek had been attending lately. He said they were boring government meetings about import taxes, but she had seen some of the documents he left on his desk. They mentioned the Zephyrian Collective and technology transfers. Derek was not supposed to know about those classified alien trade deals. Margaret walked back to her desk and opened her personal computer. She had access to security systems that most people could not even imagine. Her company built surveillance equipment for the military, and she could use those same tools to watch her own husband if she wanted to. The question was whether she really wanted to know what Derek was doing. She thought about their wedding day and how happy Derek had seemed. He had proposed after dating for only 6 months and said he could not wait to start their life together. Margaret had been surprised by how fast everything moved, but Derek was charming and seemed to love her for who she was, not just her money. Now she wondered if she had been fooled from the beginning. Derek had access to her personal accounts through their joint marriage agreement. He could see how much money she made and where her investments were placed. He also knew about her work schedule and when she would be traveling to the orbital shipyards above Earth. Margaret made a decision that would change everything. She called her personal assistant Aria, who was actually an advanced artificial intelligence that helped run her company. Aria appeared on the screen as a blue hologram that looked like a young woman with kind eyes. Aria had been with Margaret since she took over the company from her father 10 years ago. The AI was more than just a computer program. Aria could think and learn and had become like a friend to Margaret over the years. More importantly, Aria was completely loyal and could keep secrets that no human could ever know. Margaret told Aria about her suspicions and asked the AI to start monitoring Derek without him knowing. Aria could access security cameras and computer networks anywhere in the city. If Derek was meeting with people he should not be meeting with, Aria would find out. The next step was harder. Margaret needed help from someone she could trust completely. She called Dr. Helen Martinez, who had been her personal doctor since childhood. Helen had delivered Margaret when she was born and had been like a second mother to her after Margaret's real mother died in a shuttle accident. Dr. Martinez arrived at Margaret's office an hour later. She was a small woman with gray hair and gentle hands, but her mind was sharp as any scientist. Helen had worked with Collins Aerospace on several medical projects, including the hibernation systems used for long space flights. Margaret explained her plan to Helen and asked if it was possible. She wanted to fake being in a coma so she could watch Derek and see what he would do when he thought she was helpless. Helen looked worried and said it was very dangerous, but Margaret insisted it was the only way to learn the truth. Helen explained that there were medical nanobots designed for deep space hibernation that could make someone appear completely unconscious while keeping their mind fully aware. The nanobots would slow down Margaret's heart rate and breathing to almost nothing while keeping her brain active. To everyone else, she would look like she was in a deep coma, but she would be able to hear and think normally. The plan would require perfect timing and a believable accident. Margaret decided to use her next inspection trip to the orbital shipyard as the cover story. She went to space stations regularly to check on new ship construction, so no one would be surprised by another trip. Aria began planning the fake accident while Helen prepared the medical nanobots. They would need to make everything look real, including emergency medical reports and brain scans that showed Margaret was in a vegetative state. Helen said she could handle the medical side, but Margaret would need to stay completely still for weeks or maybe months while they watched Derek. Margaret spent the next few days acting normal around Derek while Aria gathered information about his activities. The AI discovered that Derek had been meeting with people from the Zephyrian embassy twice a week for the past month. The meetings were not on any official government schedule, and Derek had been lying about where he was going. The Zephyrians were supposed to be allies of humanity, but Margaret knew they were always looking for advantages in trade deals. They wanted human technology, especially the quantum jump drives that made human ships faster than any alien vessels. Derek was in a position to access that information through his government job and his marriage to Margaret. Margaret realized this was bigger than just a cheating husband. Derek might be selling human secrets to aliens, which could put all human colonies in danger. She had to know for sure what was happening, and the fake Coma plan was the only way to get proof without alerting Derek that she was suspicious. Helen finished preparing the nanobots, and Arya had everything ready for the fake accident. Margaret would take her private shuttle to the orbital shipyard tomorrow morning, and the accident would happen during the return trip to Earth. Derek would get a call that his wife was in critical condition and fighting for her life. Margaret looked at herself in the mirror and wondered if she would still be the same person after this was over. She was about to risk everything to learn the truth about her marriage and possibly save humanity from betrayal. Tomorrow she would find out if the man she loved was planning to destroy everything she had worked to protect. The morning came too quickly for Margaret, as she prepared for what might be the most dangerous day of her life. She kissed Derek goodbye at breakfast and watched his face carefully for any sign that he suspected what was about to happen. Derek seemed normal as he read news reports on his tablet and complained about traffic delays on the space elevator. Margaret's shuttle lifted off from the private launch pad at Collins Aerospace at exactly 9 in the morning. Arya was controlling the flight systems remotely while pretending to be the autopilot. Dr. Martinez was hidden in the medical bay with the nanobots ready to inject them at the right moment. The trip to the orbital shipyard took 3 hours, and Margaret spent the time reviewing the construction progress on 2 new battleships. The workers were surprised to see her, but she made her usual inspections and asked questions about the weapon systems. Everything had to look completely normal for the plan to work. At 2 in the afternoon, Margaret was ready to return to Earth. Dr. Martinez activated the nanobots as soon as they were in deep space away from the shipyard sensors. Margaret felt a strange tingling sensation as millions of tiny machines entered her bloodstream and began changing her body chemistry. Within minutes, Margaret's heart rate dropped to almost nothing, and her breathing became so shallow that it was barely visible. Her body temperature fell and her brain waves changed to match someone in a deep coma. But inside her mind, Margaret was completely awake and aware of everything around her. Arya triggered the fake accident 15 minutes later. The shuttle's navigation system appeared to malfunction, and the ship spun out of control before the emergency systems kicked in. Arya sent automatic distress signals and began broadcasting that Margaret Collins had been seriously injured during the accident. Emergency medical ships reached the shuttle within an hour, and Margaret was transferred to the best hospital on Earth. The doctors ran every test they could think of, but the nanobots made everything look like Margaret had suffered severe brain trauma during the accident. Her body was alive, but her mind appeared to be gone forever. Derek arrived at the hospital 6 hours after the accident, and Margaret heard him talking to the doctors through her enhanced hearing. The nanobots had improved her senses while making her body appear dead to medical scanners. Derek sounded genuinely worried and asked the doctors to do everything possible to help his wife. For the first 3 days, Derek stayed by Margaret's bedside almost constantly. He held her hand and talked to her about their memories together. He brought flowers and played her favorite music. Margaret began to think she had been wrong about him, and that Derek really did love her. But on the 4th day, everything changed. Derek stepped outside Margaret's room to take a phone call, and Margaret heard every word through the nanobots that had spread throughout her nervous system. Derek was talking to someone about Margaret's condition and asking how long coma patients usually survived. The conversation became more disturbing when Derek asked about Margaret's will and inheritance laws. He wanted to know when he would be able to access her personal accounts and make decisions about her company. The person on the phone seemed to be giving Derek legal advice about taking control of Margaret's assets. Margaret realized that Derek was not grieving for his wife, but planning for his future as a wealthy widower. The nanobots let her record everything she heard, and Aria was monitoring all of Derek's communications from the hospital security system. They were building a case against Derek, but Margaret wanted to know how deep his betrayal went. Over the next week, Derek spent less time at the hospital and more time meeting with lawyers and financial advisors. Margaret listened as he discussed selling parts of Collins Aerospace and moving money to offshore accounts. Derek was planning to liquidate her entire business empire as soon as the doctors declared her legally brain dead. The real shock came when Aria detected Derek meeting with representatives from the Zephyrian embassy at a private restaurant downtown. The AI had planted listening devices throughout the city and was recording every conversation Derek had outside the hospital. What Margaret heard made her blood run cold even though her body could not react. Derek was offering to sell Collins Aerospace's most classified technology to the Zephyrians in exchange for enough money to disappear forever. He had blueprints for the quantum jump drives that gave human ships their speed advantage over alien vessels. He also had access codes for the defense satellites that protected Earth from asteroid impacts and enemy attacks. The Zephyrians were very interested in Derek's offer, but they wanted more than just technology. They asked Derek about the locations of human military bases and the schedules for supply convoys between star systems. Derek promised to get them everything they needed once he had full control of Margaret's company. Margaret understood now that this was not just about money or even betrayal of their marriage. Derek was planning to sell out the entire human race to aliens, who might use that information to conquer or destroy human colonies. Millions of people would die if Derek succeeded in his plan. The conversation revealed something even worse. Derek told the aliens that he had been working with them for years even before he met Margaret. The Zephyrians had identified Margaret as a target because of her company and her access to military secrets. They had arranged for Derek to meet her and encouraged him to marry her as part of a long-term plan to steal human technology. Margaret's entire marriage had been a lie from the very beginning. Derek had never loved her and had only been pretending to be a good husband while planning to betray everything she cared about. The romantic proposal and wedding ceremony had all been part of an alien conspiracy to destroy humanity's defenses. Aria confirmed that Derek had been transferring small amounts of classified information to the Zephyrians throughout their marriage. He had been careful not to take too much at once, but over 5 years he had given them detailed intelligence about human military capabilities and weaknesses. The aliens had been planning their attack for years and were just waiting for Derek to give them complete access to Collins Aerospace. Margaret wanted to reveal herself immediately and confront Derek about his treachery, but she knew that would ruin any chance of stopping the alien plot. If Derek suspected that she knew about his plans, he would accelerate the timeline and the Zephyrians might attack before human defenses could be prepared. Instead, Margaret decided to use her apparent helplessness as an advantage. Derek thought his wife was brain dead and could not interfere with his plans. He was becoming careless about security and saying things he would never risk if he knew Margaret could hear him. Aria was recording everything and building a complete picture of the alien conspiracy. Dr. Martinez visited the hospital every day to check on Margaret's condition and adjust the nanobots as needed. The doctor was amazed at how well the technology was working, but worried about the psychological effects of being trapped in an unresponsive body for weeks. Margaret assured her through their private communication system that she was handling the stress and focusing on the mission. The end of the second week, Margaret had enough evidence to destroy Derek and expose the Zephyrian plot, but she decided to wait longer. She wanted to know exactly how many aliens were involved and what their ultimate plans were for humanity. Derek was just one piece of a larger conspiracy, and Margaret needed to understand the full scope of the threat before she could respond effectively. The hardest part was listening to Derek talk to other people about how sad he was to lose his wife while secretly planning to profit from her death. He had become skilled at playing the grieving husband role, and even Margaret's closest friends believed that Derek truly loved her and was devastated by the accident. Margaret began planning her revenge and thinking about how to turn the situation to humanity's advantage. The aliens thought they had won by placing their agent in the perfect position, but they had no idea that their target was very much alive and gathering intelligence about their plans. When Margaret finally revealed herself, it would be at the moment of maximum impact for both Derek and his alien handlers. 3 weeks into her fake coma, Margaret discovered the true scale of Derek's betrayal when she heard him talking to his lawyers about accelerating the inheritance process. Derek was claiming that keeping Margaret on life support was cruel and expensive when there was no hope of recovery. He wanted the doctors to declare her brain dead so he could inherit everything immediately. The lawyers explained that Derek would gain control of Margaret's personal fortune through their prenuptial agreement, but taking over Collins Aerospace would be more complicated. The company had special provisions that required board approval for any ownership transfers, especially to someone without military clearance. Derek would need to find ways around those protections or convince the board that he was qualified to run a defense contractor. Margaret listened as Derek outlined his plan to sell the company piece by piece to different buyers. He would claim that Collins Aerospace was too big to manage effectively and that breaking it up would be better for shareholders. The buyers Derek had in mind were shell companies controlled by the Zephyrians, who would gain access to every secret technology that protected humanity. Arya had been tracking Derek's financial activities and discovered that he had already started moving money from Margaret's personal accounts to banks in countries that did not cooperate with human law enforcement. Derek was preparing to disappear, with billions of dollars while leaving humanity defenseless against alien attack. The AI also found evidence that Derek had been in contact with Zephyrian agents for more than 10 years. His entire adult life had been dedicated to infiltrating human society and gaining access to military secrets. Derek was not just a traitor, but a deep cover operative who had been planted by aliens before Margaret had even taken control of her father's company. Margaret realized that the Zephyrians had been planning this operation since she was still learning how to run Collins Aerospace. They had identified her as a target when she was young and inexperienced, and had spent years positioning Derek to be the perfect husband for her. The aliens had studied her personality and preferences to create someone she would find attractive and trustworthy. The most disturbing discovery was that Derek had been reporting on Margaret's daily activities and personal relationships to his alien handlers throughout their marriage. The Zephyrians knew about her work schedule, her security procedures, and her relationships with key employees at Collins Aerospace. They had detailed intelligence about every aspect of her life, including her friendship with Arya and her trust in Dr. Martinez. Margaret wondered if the aliens suspected her current plan, but Arya assured her that the nanobots were undetectable by any known Zephyrian technology. The AI had designed the medical deception specifically to fool alien sensors, as well as human doctors. Margaret's fake coma was the perfect cover for gathering intelligence about the conspiracy. Derek's meetings with alien representatives became more frequent as he prepared to take control of Margaret's assets. The Zephyrians were pressuring him to move faster because they had detected increased human military activity in several star systems. Other alien species were becoming aggressive, and the Zephyrians wanted to weaken human defenses before any conflicts began. Margaret learned that the Zephyrians were not the only aliens plotting against humanity. Several species had formed a loose alliance to limit human expansion into space and reduce the threat posed by human technology. The quantum jump drives developed by Collins Aerospace had given humans a significant advantage in space travel, and other aliens were becoming concerned about human military capabilities. The alien alliance planned to use the technology stolen by Derek to level the playing field and make human ships easier to track and intercept. They also wanted detailed information about human colony defenses and supply routes, so they could launch coordinated attacks if necessary. Derek was providing them with everything they needed to cripple human civilization. Margaret realized that stopping Derek would not be enough to protect humanity from the alien threat. The conspiracy was too large and involved too many different species. She needed to find a way to turn the situation around and use Derek's betrayal as an opportunity to strengthen human defenses instead of weakening them. Arya suggested that they could feed false information to the aliens through Derek without him knowing. If they could make the aliens believe they were getting accurate intelligence while actually receiving misleading data, Margaret could set traps for any alien forces that tried to attack human territories. The plan would require perfect timing and careful coordination with human military commanders who were not part of the conspiracy. Margaret would need to reveal her fake coma to trusted allies while maintaining the deception for Derek and his alien handlers. The risk was enormous, because any mistake would alert the aliens and possibly trigger an immediate attack on Earth. Dr. Martinez warned Margaret that staying in the fake coma much longer could have permanent effects on her body, even with the nanobots protecting her vital functions. The technology was designed for short-term hibernation during space travel, not for weeks of continuous use. Margaret's muscles were beginning to weaken, and her immune system was showing signs of stress. Margaret decided she had enough evidence to expose Derek, but wanted to use his betrayal to maximum advantage for humanity. She asked Arya to begin making contact with loyal military officers and government officials who could help coordinate a response to the alien threat. The AI would reveal Margaret's condition only to people who had been thoroughly investigated and cleared of any alien connections. The breakthrough came when Derek made a critical mistake during one of his meetings with Zephyrian representatives. He revealed the location of a secret military research facility where Collins Aerospace was developing new weapon systems. The facility was so classified that even most government officials did not know it existed, but Derek had learned about it from Margaret's personal files. Arya immediately alerted the research facility about the security breach and helped them relocate the most sensitive projects to other locations. The AI also began tracking all Zephyrian agents who had attended the meeting with Derek to see if they would try to attack the research facility. Margaret hoped the aliens would reveal more of their network by acting on Derek's information. Margaret also learned that Derek had been slowly poisoning her for months before the fake accident. He had been adding small amounts of toxins to her, food that would have eventually caused organ failure and made her death look like a natural illness. The nanobots had detected and neutralized the poison, but Margaret was shocked to realize how long Derek had been planning to kill her. The discovery made Margaret more determined than ever to make Derek pay for his crimes. But she knew that personal revenge was less important than protecting humanity from the alien threat. Derek was a symptom of a larger problem, and Margaret needed to focus on the conspiracy rather than her feelings about her marriage. Arya found evidence that other wealthy humans had been targeted by alien operatives in similar ways. The Zephyrians and their allies had been running recruitment operations for decades to place agents in positions where they could access military technology and intelligence. Derek was part of a network of traitors who had been working to weaken human defenses from within. Margaret realized that her fake coma had uncovered a threat that went far beyond one unfaithful husband. The alien conspiracy reached into the highest levels of human government and business. Stopping Derek would only eliminate one operative while leaving the rest of the network intact and alert to the danger of discovery. The scope of the betrayal was almost overwhelming, but Margaret knew she had advantages that the aliens did not expect. Her control of Collins Aerospace gave her access to the most advanced technology in human space, and her apparent death meant the aliens would not be watching for resistance from her direction. She could strike back at the conspiracy without warning and use their own plans against them. Margaret began developing a strategy that would not only expose Derek and his alien handlers, but also strengthen humanity's position in the galaxy. The fake coma that had started as a test of her husband's loyalty was becoming the foundation for humanity's survival against a coordinated alien threat that few people even knew existed. Margaret's time in the fake coma had given her access to information about Collins Aerospace projects that she had never seen before. Arya had been using Margaret's security clearance to investigate every classified program in the company and had discovered something that could change the balance of power between humans and aliens forever. Deep in the research facilities beneath Collins Aerospace headquarters, scientists had been working on a project called Neural Bridge. The technology was designed to allow human consciousness to interface directly with spacecraft computer systems, creating hybrid intelligences that could control entire fleets with the speed of thought. The project had been kept secret even from Margaret because the military applications were so sensitive. Dr. Martinez had been consulting on Neural Bridge because the technology required advanced understanding of how the human brain worked during extended space travel. The nanobots that were keeping Margaret in her fake coma were actually a simplified version of the neural interface technology that could allow consciousness transfer into computer networks. Arya explained that the Neural Bridge project had reached the point where a human mind could be uploaded into the defense network that connected every military ship and space station in human territory. The uploaded consciousness would retain all human creativity and intuition, while gaining the ability to process information and coordinate responses at computer speeds across interstellar distances. Margaret realized that her fake coma had put her in the perfect position to become the first human to use neural bridge technology operationally. The nanobots in her system could be modified to create a permanent connection between her brain and the defense network, allowing her to monitor and control humanity's military forces from anywhere in known space. The implications were staggering. While Derek and his alien handlers thought they were gaining access to human technology, through one helpless woman, Margaret could become a unified command intelligence controlling every human warship and defense platform simultaneously. The aliens expected to face divided human forces with compromised leadership, but instead they would encounter a single strategic mind that could coordinate responses across light years instantly. Aria began the process of connecting Margaret's consciousness to the Collins Aerospace computer network while maintaining her fake coma as cover. The AI explained that the neural interface would feel strange at first as Margaret's awareness expanded beyond her physical body, but that she would retain her human personality and memories throughout the process. Margaret felt the connection activating as millions of data streams flowed into her consciousness. She could suddenly perceive the status of every human ship in space and monitor communications across 3 star systems simultaneously. Her awareness expanded to include orbital defense platforms around Earth asteroid mining operations in the belt and colony ships traveling to distant worlds. The sensation was overwhelming, but Margaret forced herself to adapt to her new capabilities. She could feel the heartbeat of human civilization across the galaxy and understood for the first time how vulnerable humanity really was. The colonies were scattered and poorly defended, while Earth itself relied on technology that the aliens now understood because of Derek's betrayal. Margaret began using her expanded consciousness to investigate the full scope of the alien conspiracy while maintaining her physical body's fake coma. She could access security systems throughout human space and monitor alien communications that were being intercepted by military intelligence networks. The picture that emerged was even worse than she had feared. The Zephyrians were coordinating with at least 6 other alien species to launch simultaneous attacks on human colonies once Derek had compromised Earth's defenses. The aliens had been massing fleets in distant systems and were planning to use the stolen technology to counter human advantages in speed and firepower. They intended to capture rather than destroy human colonies, so they could study human technology and possibly enslave the population. Margaret discovered that the Alien Alliance had been planning this attack for more than 20 years. They had identified humanity as a potential threat when humans first developed faster-than-light travel, and had been working to limit human expansion ever since. Derek was just the final piece of their plan to cripple human military capabilities before launching their offensive. The neural bridge connection also revealed that Collins Aerospace had been developing defensive technologies that even Margaret had not known about. Hidden research facilities were working on quantum shields that could protect entire planets and weapon systems that could destroy ships across interstellar distances. The technology existed to defend humanity, but it was scattered across different projects and had never been integrated into a unified defense strategy. Margaret realized that her consciousness transfer had given her the ability to coordinate all of humanity's defensive capabilities for the first time. She could activate hidden weapon systems, upgrade ship defenses, and coordinate fleet movements without alerting Derek or his alien handlers to what was happening. The fake coma that was supposed to leave her helpless had actually made her the most powerful human in the galaxy. Aria helped Margaret learn to use her new abilities while maintaining the medical deception that kept Derek believing his wife was brain dead. The AI served as an interface between Margaret's expanded consciousness and her physical body, allowing her to appear completely unresponsive while actually controlling vast technological networks. Margaret began secretly upgrading human defenses throughout the galaxy using her access to Collins Aerospace manufacturing facilities. She authorized production of new weapons and defensive systems while hiding the activities from Derek and anyone else who might be compromised by alien influence. The aliens thought they were preparing to attack a weakened humanity, but Margaret was actually strengthening human capabilities beyond anything they expected. The most important discovery was that the neural bridge technology could be expanded to include other humans. Margaret could potentially upload the consciousness of trusted military commanders and government officials, creating a command network that could not be infiltrated or compromised by alien agents. The hybrid human-machine intelligences would retain human judgment and creativity, while gaining the ability to coordinate responses across the galaxy instantly. Dr. Martinez monitored Margaret's vital signs as the neural interface expanded her consciousness and was amazed at how well the technology was working. Margaret's brain activity had increased dramatically, but her body remained stable and appeared to be in a deep coma to any external observers. The nanobots were successfully maintaining the deception while allowing Margaret's mind to operate on a completely different level. Margaret used her new abilities to begin tracking Derek's activities in real time through the surveillance networks that covered every major city on Earth. She could watch his meetings with alien representatives and monitor his communications without him having any idea that his supposedly brain-dead wife was aware of everything he was doing. The aliens were becoming impatient and were pressuring Derek to finalize his takeover of Collins Aerospace so they could begin their attack. They had detected increased military activity in several human systems and were concerned that their window of opportunity might be closing. Derek assured them that he would have complete control of Margaret's company within days and could provide them with everything they needed. Margaret realized that she needed to act soon before the aliens became suspicious about the delays in Derek's plan. She had gained incredible power through the neural bridge technology, but she needed to use it carefully to avoid alerting the conspiracy to her survival. The element of surprise was her greatest advantage, and she could not afford to waste it. The plan that began to form in Margaret's expanded consciousness was more ambitious than anything humanity had ever attempted. She would use Derek's betrayal as an opportunity to lure the alien fleet into a trap, while simultaneously revealing the full extent of the conspiracy to human leadership. The fake coma that was supposed to be a simple test of her husband's loyalty was becoming the foundation for humanity's greatest military victory. Margaret could feel the alien fleets moving toward human space and knew that the attack would come soon, regardless of what Derek did. The aliens had committed too many resources to their plan to abandon it now, even if they suspected something was wrong. Margaret's only choice was to be ready for them with defenses and weapons that they could never imagine. After 6 weeks of maintaining her fake coma, Margaret decided it was time to spring her trap. Derek had grown increasingly confident and careless as he prepared to inherit her fortune, and had scheduled a meeting with Zephyrian representatives to finalize the transfer of Collins Aerospace technology. Margaret knew this would be her best opportunity to catch Derek in the act and expose the alien conspiracy. Derek had convinced the doctors to begin preparing the legal paperwork to declare Margaret brain dead and remove her from life support. He claimed that keeping her alive artificially was cruel, and that Margaret would not have wanted to exist in a vegetative state. The doctors were reluctant to give up on their patient, but Derek's lawyers were pressuring them to follow his wishes as Margaret's legal husband, Margaret, watched through the hospital security system as Derek met with his legal team to finalize the inheritance process. He had already transferred millions of dollars from her personal accounts to offshore banks and was planning to liquidate her stock holdings as soon as he gained legal control. Derek spoke about Margaret as if she was already dead and showed no emotion about ending his wife's life support. The most damning evidence came when Derek accessed Margaret's personal vault in the Collins Aerospace headquarters building. The vault contained the quantum encryption codes that protected all human military communications across 3 star systems. If the aliens gained access to those codes, they could intercept and decode every message sent between human ships and colonies. Margaret had been watching Derek through security cameras as he entered the vault, using her biometric authorization codes that he had somehow obtained during their marriage. Derek connected a portable storage device to the main computer and began downloading files that contained the encryption keys for the entire human defense network. Area had modified the files, without Derek knowing, so that they contained false information mixed with real data. The aliens would get some legitimate encryption codes, but the most important systems would remain secure, while Margaret monitored which codes the aliens tried to use. This would help her track their activities and identify their agents throughout human space. As Derek finished downloading the files, Margaret activated the communication system in her hospital, room and spoke for the first time in 6 weeks. Her voice was weak because of the nanobots, but Derek could hear every word, clearly as Margaret revealed that she had been conscious the entire time and knew about his betrayal. Derek's face went white with shock as he realized that his supposedly brain-dead wife had been watching everything he did. Margaret explained that she had faked the coma to test his loyalty and had discovered far more than just an unfaithful husband. She knew about his alien contacts and his plan to sell human military secrets to enemies of humanity. Margaret told Derek that every conversation he had with the Zephyrians had been recorded, and that she had evidence of his treason dating back years before their marriage. Derek tried to deny everything, but Margaret played back recordings of his meetings with alien representatives where he discussed selling Collins aerospace technology and providing intelligence about human military capabilities. The revelation that Margaret was alive and aware sent Derek into a panic as he realized how completely his plan had failed. He had spent months preparing to inherit her fortune and betray humanity to the aliens, but now his wife knew everything and had evidence that could send him to prison for life. Derek demanded to know how Margaret had faked the medical tests, but she refused to explain her methods. Derek became desperate and tried to convince Margaret that he had been forced to work with the aliens because they threatened to kill her if he refused. He claimed that everything he did was to protect her, and that he planned to double-cross the Zephyrians once he had enough money to disappear with Margaret to a safe location. Margaret did not believe his lies, and told him that she had recordings proving he had been working with aliens since before they met. Margaret activated her connection to the neural bridge network, and her consciousness expanded beyond the hospital room to encompass the entire human defense grid. Derek watched in amazement as displays throughout the room showed that Margaret was somehow connected to military systems across 3-star systems and could monitor alien fleet movements in real time. Through her expanded awareness, Margaret detected the Zephyrian invasion fleet that had been hiding in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The aliens had been waiting for Derek to provide the final intelligence they needed, but they were growing impatient and had begun moving toward Earth even without the complete information they had requested. Margaret told Derek that his alien friends were planning to attack Earth within hours regardless of whether he completed his mission. The Zephyrians had used him to gather intelligence, but they were ready to invade with or without his help. Derek realized that the aliens had never intended to honor their agreement and would probably kill him once the invasion began to eliminate any witnesses to their conspiracy. Derek begged Margaret to help him escape before the aliens arrived, but Margaret told him that he would face trial for treason and that his only chance for mercy was to help humanity fight the invasion he had made possible. She offered to reduce his sentence if he provided information about alien military capabilities and helped identify other human traitors who were working with the conspiracy. Margaret used her neural bridge connection to contact human military commanders throughout the galaxy and alert them about the approaching alien invasion. She transmitted the evidence of Derek's betrayal, along with intelligence about alien fleet movements and battle plans that she had gathered during her fake coma. The commanders were shocked to learn that Margaret Collins was alive and apparently connected to computer systems in ways they did not understand. Admiral Sarah Blake, who commanded the Earth Defense Fleet, initially refused to believe that Margaret could be controlling military systems from her hospital bed. Margaret proved her identity and capabilities by activating defense satellites around Earth and demonstrating her ability to coordinate fleet movements across interstellar distances simultaneously. Margaret explained to Admiral Blake that she had used experimental neural interface technology to connect her consciousness to the human defense network and could now coordinate military responses with unprecedented speed and accuracy. The Admiral was skeptical about the technology, but had to admit that Margaret's coordination capabilities were beyond anything human commanders had ever achieved. The most important revelation was that Margaret had been secretly upgrading human defenses throughout the galaxy while maintaining her fake coma. She had authorized production of new weapon systems and defensive technologies that even the military commanders did not know existed. The aliens were expecting to attack a weakened humanity, but they would encounter defenses that were far more advanced than anything they had seen before. Margaret told Admiral Blake that the alien invasion fleet was larger than any previous attack on human territory, but that humanity had advantages the aliens did not know about. The neural bridge technology allowed her to coordinate defensive responses across light years instantly, while the aliens still relied on slower communication, methods that could be intercepted and decoded. Derek listened in, growing horror as Margaret described the scale of the alien invasion and the casualties that would result if humanity was not prepared. He had thought he was just making money by selling technology to the Zephyrians, but he had actually helped plan an attack that could destroy human civilization. The weight of his betrayal was finally becoming clear as he realized how many people would die because of his actions. Margaret gave Derek one final choice. He could help humanity by providing intelligence about alien weaknesses and battle tactics, or he could be locked away while the invasion proceeded without his input. Derek chose to cooperate and began revealing everything he knew about Zephyrian military capabilities and the other alien species that were part of the conspiracy. The information Derek provided confirmed Margaret's worst fears about the scale of the alien alliance, but also revealed weaknesses that could be exploited. The aliens had been planning their attack for so long that they had become overconfident and had not prepared for the possibility that humans might detect their conspiracy before the invasion began. Margaret realized that Derek's betrayal had actually given humanity a unique opportunity to strike back at the alien alliance. The neural bridge technology, combined with the intelligence gathered during her fake coma, had provided capabilities that no human military force had ever possessed. The question now was whether humanity could use those advantages effectively before the alien fleets reached Earth. Margaret's consciousness expanded across the human defense network as she prepared to face the largest alien invasion in human history. Through her neural bridge connection, she could perceive every human ship weapon platform and sensor array across 3 star systems simultaneously. The aliens had expected to attack a fragmented humanity with compromised leadership, but instead they would face a unified defense controlled by a single strategic intelligence. The Zephyrian fleet was massive beyond anything humanity had encountered before. Margaret counted over 2,000 ships, including battle cruisers that were larger than anything in the human fleet. The aliens had been building their invasion force for decades and had brought enough firepower to destroy every human colony if they achieved surprise. But Margaret's fake coma had eliminated their element of surprise and given humanity time to prepare. Admiral Blake coordinated with Margaret from the Earth Defense Fleet headquarters while struggling to understand how one woman could control so many systems at once. Margaret explained that the neural bridge technology allowed her to process information and coordinate responses at computer speeds while retaining human intuition and creativity. She could make tactical decisions for thousands of ships, simultaneously while adapting to changing battlefield conditions in real time. Margaret began activating defensive systems that had been hidden throughout human space for years. Secret weapon platforms emerged from asteroid belts where they had been disguised as mining equipment. Military bases that appeared to be civilian research stations revealed massive gun batteries and shield generators. The aliens had been planning their attack based on incomplete intelligence about human defensive capabilities. The first surprise for the alien fleet came when they approached the outer edge of the solar system. Margaret had repositioned defense satellites that normally protected Earth from asteroids to create a detection grid that could track approaching ships from much greater distances than the aliens expected. The invasion fleet lost their stealth advantage while still days away from their primary targets. Margaret used the early warning to coordinate defensive preparations across human space. She transmitted battle plans to every human ship and station simultaneously, while updating their tactics based on real-time intelligence about alien fleet movements. Human commanders who had never worked together before found themselves operating as parts of a unified strategy that adapted to changing conditions faster than any traditional command structure could manage. The aliens had planned to divide their forces and attack multiple human colonies simultaneously to prevent coordinated resistance. Margaret countered by using the neural bridge network to coordinate defenses across interstellar distances, as if all human forces were in the same star system. When aliens attacked a colony in one system, Margaret could instantly redirect reinforcements from other systems and coordinate their arrival timing perfectly. Derek provided crucial intelligence about alien ship designs and weapon capabilities that helped Margaret develop effective countermeasures. The Zephyrians used energy shields that were nearly impervious to human plasma weapons, but Derek revealed that the shields had vulnerabilities to certain frequencies that Collins Aerospace had accidentally discovered during testing. Margaret immediately transmitted this information to every human ship and authorized modifications to their weapon systems. The battle began when the alien fleet reached Jupiter's orbit and encountered the first layer of Earth's defenses. Margaret had concentrated her most advanced weapons in the outer solar system, including experimental particle beam arrays that could destroy ships at distances measured in light minutes. The aliens expected human defenses to be concentrated around Earth, but instead they faced a layered defense that extended throughout the solar system. Margaret's tactical coordination proved devastating to the alien attack formation. She could predict their movements based on communications intercepts and coordinate human responses. Before the aliens realized their plans had been compromised, human ships appeared exactly where they were needed to intercept alien forces, while defensive platforms fired with precision that seemed impossible to achieve. Across such vast distances, the aliens tried to adapt their tactics, but Margaret was always one step ahead because she could process battlefield information faster than their commanders could communicate with each other. The neural bridge technology allowed her to coordinate hundreds of separate engagements as if they were parts of a single battle, while the alien fleet struggled to maintain coordination across their massive formation. Margaret revealed another surprise when alien ships began taking heavy damage from human weapons. Collins Aerospace had been developing quantum disruptor technology that could partially bypass alien energy shields. The weapons had never been tested in combat, but Margaret's consciousness could coordinate their firing patterns to maximize effectiveness. Alien ships that should have been protected by their shields found themselves vulnerable to human attacks. The most devastating moment for the alien fleet came when Margaret activated a hidden weapon system that even Admiral Blake had not known existed. Deep space defense platforms that had been disguised as communications relays revealed themselves as massive railguns that could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy weapons could destroy even the largest alien ships with single hits. Admiral Blake watched in amazement as Margaret coordinated the battle across multiple star systems while maintaining perfect situational awareness of every engagement. Human casualty rates were far lower than anyone had expected, because Margaret could predict where attacks would come and position defenses accordingly. The unified command structure created by the neural bridge technology was proving to be humanity's greatest military advantage. The aliens began to realize that they had seriously underestimated human defensive capabilities, but it was too late to retreat without massive losses. Margaret had positioned human forces to cut off their escape routes and was systematically destroying alien ships faster than they could inflict damage on human targets. The invasion that was supposed to cripple humanity was turning into a disaster. For the alien alliance, Derek watched the battle, displays in horror as he realized the true scale of destruction that his betrayal had nearly made possible. If Margaret had not discovered his conspiracy and prepared these defenses, the alien fleet would have achieved complete surprise and could have destroyed Earth's orbital infrastructure before any resistance could be organized. Millions of humans would have died in the first few hours of the invasion. Margaret used captured alien communications to identify the other species that were part of the conspiracy and began coordinating attacks on their staging areas in distant star systems. The neural bridge network allowed her to command human forces across the galaxy simultaneously, and she was not content to simply repel the invasion of Earth. She wanted to eliminate the alien threat permanently by destroying their ability to launch future attacks. The battle around Jupiter became a turning point when Margaret's coordinated defense destroyed the alien flagship along with most of their command structure. The remaining alien ships lost coordination and began fighting as individual units instead of as parts of a unified fleet. Margaret exploited their confusion by concentrating human forces against isolated alien formations and destroying them one by one. Within 12 hours of the first engagement, the alien invasion fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing toward deep space. Margaret allowed some ships to escape so they could report back to their governments about humanity's unexpected defensive capabilities. She wanted other alien species to know that humans were no longer vulnerable to surprise attacks, and that any future aggression would be met with overwhelming force. The victory was complete, but Margaret knew that the war was not over. The alien alliance would eventually regroup and try again with better intelligence and more advanced weapons. Humanity needed to use this victory to strengthen their position in the galaxy and prepare for future conflicts. The neural bridge technology that had made the victory possible would need to be expanded and improved to maintain humanity's advantage. Margaret realized that her fake coma had not only exposed Derek's betrayal, but had also transformed her into something new. She was no longer just a human woman running a defense company, but a hybrid intelligence that could protect humanity in ways that no individual had ever been able to achieve. The question now was whether humanity was ready for the changes that this new technology would bring to their civilization. The defeat of the alien invasion fleet around Jupiter was only the beginning of Margaret's campaign to secure humanity's position in the galaxy. Through her neural bridge connection, she could monitor alien communications across dozens of star systems and had discovered that the Zephyrian Alliance was planning to regroup for another attack within months. Margaret decided that humanity could not afford to wait for the aliens to return with better preparation. Margaret's consciousness had evolved during the battle as the neural bridge technology adapted to the demands of coordinating such a massive conflict. She could now process information and make decisions at speeds that approached the theoretical limits of quantum computing, while retaining all of her human creativity and intuition. The hybrid intelligence she had become was unlike anything that had ever existed in the galaxy. Admiral Blake and the other human military commanders were struggling to understand the implications of Margaret's transformation. She was still recognizably human in her personality and values, but her capabilities had expanded beyond anything they could comprehend. Margaret could simultaneously command fleets in different star systems while analyzing alien technology and developing new weapon systems, all while maintaining her fake coma as cover for her activities. Derek had become completely cooperative after witnessing the scale of destruction that his betrayal had nearly caused. He provided detailed intelligence about alien military installations and revealed the locations of secret bases where other species were building invasion fleets. Margaret used this information to plan preemptive strikes that would eliminate the alien threat before they could regroup for another attack. The first target was a massive shipyard in the Centauri system, where the Zephyrians had been building their invasion fleet for over a decade. Margaret coordinated a surprise attack using human ships that had been upgraded with technology captured from the defeated invasion force. The hybrid weapon systems combined human engineering with alien energy manipulation techniques, creating destructive capabilities that neither species had achieved alone. Margaret's tactical coordination during the Centauri raid demonstrated the full potential of the neural bridge technology. She controlled every human ship as if it were an extension of her own body, while processing real-time intelligence about alien defenses and adapting her strategy accordingly. The shipyard was destroyed along with hundreds of partially completed alien warships before the Zephyrians could mount an effective defense. The success of the Centauri raid convinced other human leaders that Margaret's expanded capabilities were humanity's greatest strategic advantage. President Linda Carter authorized Margaret to expand the Neural Bridge program to include other trusted individuals who could help coordinate humanity's military response across the galaxy. Margaret began the careful process of selecting candidates who could handle consciousness expansion without losing their essential humanity. Dr. Martinez monitored Margaret's physical condition as her consciousness continued to evolve and expand. The nanobots that had originally been used to fake her coma were now permanently integrated into her nervous system and were continuously upgrading themselves to support her growing mental capabilities. Margaret's body was becoming a hybrid of biological and technological systems that could support consciousness on a galactic scale. Margaret discovered that her expanded awareness allowed her to understand alien psychology and predict their responses to human actions with remarkable accuracy. She could analyze intercepted communications and behavioral patterns to determine which alien species might be willing to negotiate peace and which would continue to pose threats regardless of military defeats. This intelligence became crucial for planning humanity's long-term strategy. The second major campaign targeted a coalition of 4 alien species that had been planning coordinated attacks on human colonies in the outer systems. Margaret used Derek's intelligence to identify their staging areas and supply lines, then coordinated simultaneous strikes that crippled their ability to launch offensive operations. The attacks were timed perfectly to catch the aliens when their fleets were dispersed and vulnerable. Margaret's consciousness allowed her to coordinate these multiple campaigns as if they were chess moves in a single game. She could predict how success in one system would affect alien responses in other regions and plan accordingly. The aliens found themselves constantly reacting to human initiatives instead of executing their own plans, creating a strategic momentum that favored humanity. The most ambitious operation was an attack on the Alien Alliance's primary command center, in a distant star system that served as their coordination hub for anti-human activities. Margaret had identified the location through analysis of captured communications, and realized that destroying it would eliminate the aliens' ability to coordinate future attacks against human territory. The command center was protected by massive defensive installations and was located deep in alien-controlled space, where human ships had never traveled before. Margaret coordinated a strike force using the most advanced ships in the human fleet, equipped with quantum jump drives that could travel faster and farther than any alien vessels could follow. Margaret's consciousness rode with the strike force through the neural bridge network, allowing her to coordinate their approach and adapt their tactics in real time as they encountered alien defenses. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible without instantaneous communication and command integration across interstellar distances. The destruction of the alien command center sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy as other species realized that humanity had developed capabilities that made them essentially untouchable. Margaret had demonstrated that human forces could strike anywhere in known space with precision and coordination that no conventional military organization could match. Derek provided additional intelligence about alien political structures that helped Margaret understand which species were genuinely hostile to humanity and which had been pressured into joining the alliance by more aggressive neighbors. She began developing diplomatic strategies to split the alien coalition and negotiate separate peace agreements with species that might be willing to coexist with humanity. Margaret's expanded consciousness allowed her to conduct these diplomatic negotiations directly through alien communication networks while simultaneously coordinating military operations in other regions. She could present humanity's position with perfect consistency across multiple channels while adapting her arguments to appeal to different alien psychology and value systems. The campaign reached its climax when Margaret detected a massive alien fleet massing in a distant system for what appeared to be a final, desperate attempt to destroy Earth before humanity could become too powerful to defeat. The fleet included ships from over a dozen species and represented the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Margaret realized that this would be humanity's opportunity to end the conflict permanently by demonstrating capabilities that would make future alien aggression unthinkable. She began coordinating the largest military operation in human history, using every ship weapon platform and defensive installation available across 3 star systems. The battle plan that emerged from Margaret's strategic analysis was audacious beyond anything human commanders had ever attempted. She would use Derek's intelligence about alien coordination methods to disrupt their communications while simultaneously attacking their fleet with forces positioned throughout the galaxy. The aliens would face human attacks from directions they could not predict, while losing the ability to coordinate their own responses. Margaret's consciousness had evolved to the point where she could process the tactical situation across an entire galaxy while making strategic decisions that accounted for political consequences that might not become apparent for years. She was no longer just fighting a military campaign, but reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy to ensure humanity's long-term survival and prosperity. The final battle would determine whether humanity would emerge as the dominant species in known space, or whether the Alien Alliance could still find a way to contain human expansion. Margaret knew that victory would require her to push her expanded capabilities to their absolute limits while maintaining the essential humanity that gave her the wisdom to use such power responsibly. The final battle against the Alien Alliance became the defining moment for humanity's future in the galaxy. Margaret's consciousness expanded across space as she coordinated the largest military operation in human history, while facing an enemy fleet that represented the combined might of dozens of alien species. The outcome would determine whether humanity would survive as an independent civilization or be crushed by forces that had been planning their destruction for decades. Margaret had positioned human forces throughout the galaxy in preparation for this climactic engagement. Her neural bridge technology allowed her to coordinate attacks from multiple star systems, simultaneously while maintaining perfect situational awareness of the massive alien fleet that was approaching Earth. The aliens expected to face human forces concentrated around their home world, but instead encountered a distributed defense that could strike from any direction. The battle began when Margaret activated hidden weapon platforms that had been positioned along the alien fleet's approach route months earlier. The platforms had been disguised as asteroid mining equipment and space debris, but revealed themselves as devastating particle beam arrays that could destroy capital ships with concentrated fire. The aliens found themselves under attack before they even realized that human forces were present. Margaret's tactical coordination reached levels that seemed impossible, even for an enhanced human consciousness. She was simultaneously directing fleet movements in 6 different star systems while analyzing alien communications, intercepts, and developing countermeasures for weapons that the aliens had never used in combat before. Her hybrid intelligence processed information at quantum speeds while retaining the intuition and creativity that made humans such effective warriors. Derek watched the battle displays from his detention facility and realized that his betrayal had actually given humanity advantages that they could never have achieved otherwise. Margaret's fake coma had forced her to develop capabilities that transformed her into something far more powerful than a normal human leader. The aliens had created their own worst enemy by pushing Margaret to transcend the limitations that had previously constrained human strategic thinking. The alien fleet began to fragment as Margaret's coordinated attacks disrupted their command structure and eliminated key ships that served as communication relays. The aliens had built their strategy around centralized command and control systems that became vulnerabilities when faced with an opponent who could coordinate responses faster than their commanders could issue orders. Margaret's consciousness evolved further during the battle as the neural bridge technology adapted to the unprecedented demands of coordinating such a complex engagement. She began to perceive patterns in the battle that revealed fundamental weaknesses in how alien species approached warfare. Their reliance on rigid hierarchies and slow communication made them predictable, while humanity's adaptability gave them decisive advantages. Admiral Blake coordinated with Margaret from Earth Defense Command while marveling at her ability to maintain awareness of every aspect of the galactic conflict. Margaret could discuss tactical details of engagements in distant star systems, while simultaneously planning strategic operations that would reshape the political balance of the galaxy. Her expanded consciousness had made her into humanity's greatest military asset. The turning point came when Margaret used captured alien technology to hack into their fleet communication networks and begin feeding them false information about human force dispositions. The aliens found themselves responding to threats that did not exist while ignoring real dangers until it was too late to mount effective defenses. Margaret was fighting the battle on informational and psychological levels that the aliens had never encountered. Before Margaret realized that victory in this battle would not be enough to ensure humanity's long-term security, she needed to demonstrate capabilities that would make future alien aggression unthinkable, while establishing humanity as a power that other species would respect rather than fear. The solution came through her expanded understanding of alien psychology and political structures. Margaret began broadcasting messages to individual alien species, explaining humanity's position and offering alternatives to continued conflict. Her consciousness could craft arguments that appealed to each species' specific values and concerns, while presenting a consistent overall message about humanity's intentions. She was conducting diplomacy and warfare simultaneously across the galaxy. Several alien species began to withdraw from the battle as they realized that continued fighting would only result in the destruction of their fleets without any possibility of victory. Margaret allowed these ships to retreat while focusing her attacks on the most aggressive species that remained committed to destroying humanity. She was demonstrating that humans could be both merciful and ruthlessly effective, depending on alien choices. The final phase of the battle showcased the full potential of human technology enhanced by Margaret's expanded consciousness. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute limits. The remaining alien forces found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. Margaret's victory was complete when the last alien command ship surrendered after its escort fleet had been systematically destroyed. The alien alliance that had threatened humanity for decades was broken and would never again pose a serious threat to human expansion. Margaret had used Derek's betrayal as the foundation for humanity's greatest military triumph. With the immediate threat eliminated, Margaret faced the question of what to do with her expanded capabilities. The neural bridge technology had made her into something beyond normal human limitations, but she retained her essential humanity and her commitment to protecting her species. She chose to maintain her dual existence as both a physical human and a galactic intelligence. Dr. Martinez helped Margaret develop procedures for safely transitioning between her expanded consciousness and her physical body. The nanobots that had started as a tool for faking her coma had evolved into a permanent interface that allowed Margaret to exist simultaneously as a human, woman, and as a distributed intelligence that could monitor and protect human interests across the galaxy. Derek was offered a choice between permanent imprisonment and exile to frontier colonies, where he could contribute to human expansion while remaining under constant surveillance. He chose exile and spent the rest of his life working to establish new human settlements as a form of penance for his betrayal. Margaret's forgiveness allowed him to find some measure of redemption through service to the civilization he had once tried to destroy. Margaret established new protocols for preventing alien infiltration and manipulation that would protect humanity from future conspiracies. The neural bridge technology was expanded to include other trusted individuals who could help monitor galactic developments and coordinate responses to emerging threats. Humanity would never again be vulnerable to the kind of long-term subversion that Derek had represented. The victory transformed humanity's position in the galaxy from a relatively minor species struggling to establish colonies to the dominant military power that other civilizations approached with respect and caution. Margaret's expanded consciousness served as humanity's guardian and strategic coordinator, ensuring that human interests were protected. Across all known space, Margaret addressed the galactic community through diplomatic channels she had established during the conflict, announcing that humanity was prepared to coexist peacefully with species that respected human independence but would respond decisively to any future threats. Her dual existence as human and hybrid intelligence gave her words a weight that no conventional diplomat could match. The galaxy learned that day that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their ability to adapt and transcend limitations when faced with existential threats. Margaret's transformation from a suspicious wife to a galactic intelligence demonstrated the potential that lay dormant in every human when circumstances demanded extraordinary responses. Years later, Margaret looked back on her fake coma as the event that had saved not just her marriage but her entire species. Derek's betrayal had forced her to discover capabilities that elevated humanity to a new level of cosmic significance. The test of her husband's loyalty had become the foundation for humanity's emergence as a galactic superpower that would shape the future of known space for generations to come.